or they will be heading home. No one will know that better than Nathan Outridge at the helm of Artemis Racing. Rather like Great Britain, the Swedes have to win 4 of the next 5 against Dean Barker, who needs just 2 race victories to progress. The Swedes this time with port entry as they look to outmaneuver the Japanese crew. Let's check in again with Joey Newton, part of the American team out here, watching with great interest as all the others slug it out. Joey, have you seen enough from the Swedish crew to be confident they can launch a comeback here, or do you think Dean Barker will be able to see this through?
Pressure, another 300 meters.
Having trouble hooking up with Joey. We'll try and get hold of him a little bit later on.
An interesting statistic is SoftBank Team Japan is only 5 out of 9, winning 5 out of 9 races that they've been ahead at mark number 1. They've had a hard time keeping leads, let's face it. And they need to, if they want to keep moving on in this whole contest, they need to fix that somehow.
Well, Dean Barker looks and would appear to be a little cooler and calmer than Nathan Outridge, taking it all in his stride. If heart rates are anything to go by. So this semi-final of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup challenges between Sweden and Japan. The Japanese 3-1 up. Outridge against Barker. Who's hunting who in the pre-start, Ken?
Yeah, the chase is on right now. Barker's up on his foils. The starting line is way up high, way up top in the box, and these guys are going to start to try to chase each other down low in the box. There's the start line way up there, and these guys are going to come all the way down to this lay line down here and try to fight for that position, try to get a hook. But I'll tell you what, Outridge is fending it off pretty well right now. It's all about timing. Barker's still going for the hook, still pressing in underneath to try to get that elusive overlap. Outridge doing a nice job. Now it's time in distance. Barker's just going to set it up and try to send it and get a little faster. He's got to get up on the foils, though, to be able to get off that line in one piece.
Timing is everything. 3 seconds to the start line. Looks like they judged it pretty well. The Japanese through, but with a penalty.
SoftBank Team Japan. Recall. SoftBank Team Japan.
Just a bit early through the start line, and it's allowed the Swedes to get off to a flyer.
The recall and the penalty means 2 boat lengths behind the other boat, which he has accomplished. And it's back to the races. Just a tiny split second. He pulled the trigger too soon, Dean Barker and the Japanese.
Approaching the 40-knot mark, the Swedes going nicely. The penalty shaken off by SoftBank Team Japan, and their boat speed is good too as they round the first mark and head off downwind. That's the wing wash of the Swedes, which may or may not be affecting the Japanese at this point.
It was certainly on that reach. It kind of took that 2 boat length lead and turned it into a 4, 5, 6 boat length lead. Let's take a look at this drag race. Japanese were very fast, remember, a few days ago, upwind especially. They were 2 very close boats downwind. Let's see if they've made some tweaks to their boats, and just amazing how from day to day, how boat speeds and comparatives between the 2 boats can change so much.
So 1 and in right.
Dean Barker and the Japanese with 2 wins in a row on Tuesday in those very, very high winds. The debris was flying, the fairing was tearing off at every different turn, but he was very composed, Dean Barker, and he spoke a little bit about just having to cling on for dear life, really, in that scenario, trying very hard just to get the boat round the course as simply as possible. Nothing simple in those sort of winds.
He looked like the guy who combined kind of survival and speed best out on the race course that day.
Get it ripping, Goops.
So as we see the Japanese crew scampering around the platform, let's bring in Joey Newton, part of Oracle Team USA. He's on the water for us today. Joey, how do you see this matchup?
Well, look, it's setting up beautifully at the moment with Artemis going really well. Great start by Artemis, a slight misjudge by Dean. I think Dean's trying to set up for a split here, and Artemis will try and go straight into the left-hand side of the course. It'd be really interesting to see which side pays. I kind of like the way Artemis are going. Oh, they're covering now, so they're just trying to put their foot on the throat of Team Japan and just make sure they're behind them.
Very interesting move there. They had an easy lay into that gate, and they decide to jibe directly in front of Japan. That was actually reasonably unexpected. We haven't seen that move very much. Certainly not the simple move, but when it comes to match racing, quite effective.
He's setting up. He's setting up.
So again, the wing washer factor, and this presumably part of the decision that was made at the gate.
Absolutely. 4-knot boat speed difference that whole time, and not a great tack by the Japanese. Certainly affected by how fast the boat's going. Remember, with these heavy air foils, you need a certain speed to be able to effectively lift off, and that's thought to be above 20 knots. So you slow down your competitor, he has a hard time tacking at the same time.
And explain the numbers at the top of these boats here.
Well, it's right-hand shift, so the guy on the right side, the guy on the right side, the guy on the right side had a right-hand shift.
BMG for now. Transition to high mode in the last third. You guys agree we hit him on the next one? Yes. 20% off his track. Start transitioning into high
Percy
mode.
talking about high mode, where they want to tack on top of Japan when Japan tacks at the boundary. They will go probably right to the boundary.
Okay, setting up. 2, 1, towards you. Turning.
So a narrow advantage here to the Swedish crew under the helmsmanship of Nathan Outridge. Both these two had to cope with some of those supporter boats actually being out on the course a couple of days ago. They'd strayed inside the boundary. So there was not only crazy winds to deal with and all sorts of problems to handle, but there were obstacles on the course too.
Textbook match racing by the Swedes right now, set up by that lured gate. And move there.
Swedes going well. 100% fly time, 100% of the time. Their hulls out of the water, and therefore the drag minimised, which is what it is all about.
Setting up. Okay, anytime.
Tactician will be actually looking at Japan, and when Japan's grinders start running across the boat, they're looking for any telltale sign to be able to set up against the other guy. And sure enough, here we go. Much more classic match racing tactics that we've really ever seen in one of these races. And again, very effectively set up by the Swedes at that bottom gate.
Just to reiterate, HDG stands for heading.
Heading.
And the numbers?
Well, it's right hand. So you're looking, as you're on starboard tack, you're looking for a higher right hand number, a larger right hand shift. Artemis is kind of controlling the angles of the boats right now, and they get to kind of do what they wish. If they want to bear off and put a little more wing wash on Japan, they can. If they want to try to get some height, they can. So they have a little more controlling spot at this stage.
Good righty coming. I think we know. Let's see how far he goes. See how far he goes. Take it up now. Setting up, Pete. Setting up. Gotta go all the way, yeah. Yours. 3, 2, 1, get board.
There's the choreography. And just one of the hulls taking a bit of a dip for a short moment. Otherwise, the Japanese bang on track and nestled right in behind the Swedes.
Hey, let's go back to Joey Newton for a second. Joey, tell us about what's an average speed you need to really do an effective lift off on these boards? What's a minimum speed to get these things in the air?
Well, these boats are on their high-speed foils, Ken, so the lift-off is a little higher, just like an airplane with smaller wings. You need more speed to take off. I think these boats are probably around 17 to 18 knots on these foils to be able to take off an attack. On the light air foils, it might be as low as 14.
So it's fair to say that if somebody kind of tacks on you, gets you a little bit slow, all of a sudden your tack out of there is really going to be in jeopardy as far as being smooth and fast.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And especially when you're on your speed foils, this is a lower wind speed for the high-speed foils. So if you get someone that tacks on top of you and forces you to do something that you're not quite ready for, you can very easily drop off the foils and attack.
Here's where these small leads turn into reasonably large ones when you get around this mark and go from 25 to 35 knots.
A little bit to do here for Dean Barker, in danger of having their lead cut in this semi-final from 3 points to 1, where they stand currently just 2 race wins away from a place in the Challenger playoff final.
Get back on top of the oil, Gino, me and you a bit, okay? He's like the boundary, he's the boundary drive. Three Matt. Coming down with setting up. Take it all. Setting by. Little header here, just a little hold. 3, 2, 1, go forward. All right.
And the jibe is a good one from the Japanese. Underperformed by their high standards in the qualifying stage. Just 3 wins from their 10. Got off to some good starts, built up some decent leads, but as Ken was mentioning earlier on, found themselves squandering far too many of them. But here they are chasing, and these are the heart rates of the Swedish crew. Bear in mind, that percentage, it really doesn't drop an awful lot for the duration of the race. So they're at 92, 93% of their max heart rate for the best part of 20 minutes.
The interesting part is Outridge's heart rate is not much lower than the guys grinding all the time. So this is a little, listen, I contest the fact that you grab onto that steering wheel and your heart rate goes up just automatically. So it kind of comes part and parcel with the job.
Well, it's pressure of a totally different kind, isn't it?
It sure is.
The pressure of responsibility, the pressure of decisions. It's not such a physical test for the helmsman, but they are tested in a variety of different ways. I think for the layman out there, just go to the gym and try working out at 94, 95% of your max heart rate for 20 minutes and see how you feel at the end of it.
Well, then the ambulance will be waiting outside.
Go.
I'm not suggesting you should do it. That would be code blue.
Code blue.
Pretty easy at the minute. One large little shift. Possible seagull down here, okay?
Seagull, I'm guessing, is their eagle. That means they've slightly understood the weather mark, and they're going to have to need a little more stability to stay on the foils coming down to it. They drop their weather board. That's just a guess. We'll have to see if it pans out.
Up here in 3.
So the possibilities here for the Japanese as they split the course. They're going to go hunting for air up the other end just to see whether they can gain an extra edge somehow or other, because they're running out of time.
Speed for the 10. 15. Sitting up.
Ali, at least they have a split this time, the Japanese do. It'll be interesting to see if, when they tack at the border on the left side of our screen, they're going to tack here very shortly. If Artemis decides not to go all the way to the boundary and decides to kind of get back into that match race tactics again.
Well, all talk of the boundaries maybe is has been banned in the Swedish camp over the last couple of days because they went blasting all the way through it a couple of days ago. They picked up a couple of penalties as a result, and Ian Percy was not a happy man.
You had to bring that up, didn't you?
Well, there were a few choice words out there on the boat, for which he's apologised, I must also add.
Yes. I agree. Go.
So after this, just one more downwind leg into and out of the final gate and away to the finish line. The Swedes maintaining that incredible percentage of time up on the foils. The Japanese not too far behind them. So far, the Kiwis the only boat to have raced around the track at 100% on the foils.
One thing sticking out here, unlike the other day where it sure seemed upwind that Japan had the speed edge to all of us, two very equal boats, both upwind and down. I mean, they've really held this 100-meter lead pretty much throughout.
Let's bring in Joey Newton again. Joey, from where you're sitting, what exactly can the Japanese do to get back in this from here? Because they're not too far away, but they are running out of time in something of a hurry.
Yeah, I mean, they're just waiting for Artemis to make a mistake. Artemis are just sailing such a clean and, you know, like Nathan was saying before the race, simple race. They're just staying in between the Japanese and the next mark. There's very little you can do if you're on the Japanese boat to sail around them when your boat's going the same speed.
Push. My wheel. My right.
Reliant on Swedish errors, and right now they are few and far between. The error count has been low in this race for Nathan Outridge and Ian Percy.
BMG good. Yeah, we are laying. It's pretty shifty. I'd like to keep him safe.
Trying to crank up as much hydraulic energy and power as possible.
He's almost laying too.
That's the voice of Ian Percy relaying the information back to his skipper about what the Japanese
as
are
long as
up
you don't give him leverage, I would lay. I agree. He's going now.
And here's where they potentially will split away from Japan. Just make sure they lay.
2, 1, board down.
They want to make sure they get through this next gate only in one maneuver. Maneuvers, even though they look super quick up on the foils, they definitely lose a boat length or two.
Pressure about to hit us.
Are they going to lay the gate, though? Seems like they might have done the worst of both worlds there for a second. They're not going to lay the gate, and they didn't tack directly on top of the Japanese. They are still in control.
Let's put the pressure, go. 10 seconds. Setting up. Come on. 2, 1, board down. Turning.
It's interesting their sequence there. They send Ian Jensen over first. He's the wing trimmer. Outridge actually holds the wing trim while Jensen goes across the boat. Remember, those two have won 2 medals in the Olympics together. They kind of know each other. Then you hear Outridge say, my wheel. That means he's grabbed the wheel from Jensen. Then he says, my rake. Somehow he's taking the rake adjustment out of somebody else's hands once the maneuver is complete, and he's controlling the fore and aft board rake.
It's a slick operation. Those yellow circles, by the way, around the gate markers, that's all about right of way. If the two boats are tight to each other, Kenny, it's one of the factors that decides who has right of way as they enter the circle.
It is. It's one of the factors. There's overlap, and there's where you sit when you go into that 3 boat length circle. There's lights on board the boats, so actually the sailors themselves know when they're in that 3 boat length circle, so they can judge an overlap or not. So it's just a way to really get the boats around safely, around the corners safely. We haven't seen a whole lot of infractions at the corners. I remember in the America's Cup World Series, we would see tons and tons of issues at those gates.
It's a lay at the moment. If we don't go too fast. Yeah, save the jibe! It's going to get better as we go through, so we are slightly fast mode here. Gaining BMG at the moment on him.
I love it when they do the commentary.
Let's head home. It's a lot better than us, I'll tell you that.
You get it from the horse's mouth.
Okay, little squirt now. Take it down a tap. Good radio. Yeah.
You know, these guys have actually sailed a really good race. They've been pounded on by Artemis all the way around. This is, I think anybody, maybe we go back out to Joey. Joey, these look like two incredibly equal boats around the race course right now.
Yeah, the boat speeds themselves are really similar. I think Artemis has taken a good step up with, you know, whatever mods they may have made since they last went sailing. Their boat certainly seems a lot happier in this breeze than it did in the stronger wind of the last few days, but they've both sailed a really neat race. Very few mistakes between either of them. Artemis have just stayed on top of Japan the whole way, and there's just been no chances for him to get around.
Like Joey said earlier, Ali, if the boat ahead doesn't make a mistake,
Here and soft above us.
you're not going to get by. Unless you're significantly faster. Maybe in that first race, we might have seen something like that. But in this race, for sure, these two boats are really similar in speed.
Where's the finish?
Where's the finish? That's the most important question of all.
Jeez.
He's got his head down grinding, that's why.
Yeah, don't ask Richard Slater where the finish line is, Ian. Is that too soon?
I think they're friends again now.
Okay.
So through the final gate, and the Swedes are doing a very good job this afternoon. They needed it today. Goodness, how they needed it. Well beaten in the couple of races on Tuesday. The boat breaking up in all kinds of different places, but they have responded so well.
Dean Barker kicking himself for that starting line, I'll tell you that.
So the Swedes applying the heat. So well matched against the Japanese, but closing the gap now to just 1 point between these two crews in the Challenger playoff semi-final. If the other semi is looking like a one-sided affair, this is anything but.
Kind of what we've seen as a traditional way to finish for the second place boat. For the boat that got beat is they essentially just they don't care about the clock in the lower right-hand corner. That really means nothing. That's just more for our entertainment, and he's just giving the guys a rest on board right now. They got another big race to come here in a few minutes.
So the Japanese plow across the finish line. Went for the hook at the start, just mistimed it over the start line. The penalty that allowed the Swedish outfit to get their noses in front, and they held the lead all the way through. This is the breakdown, leg by leg.